Welcome everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us. You're here to learn more about Bluetooth Mesh. Let me get my slides going. It's important. So my name is Bill Johnson. I'm the Marketing Director here at Teledyne Croy. I'm joined today by Varun Gopalan. He's one of our fantastic software engineers here. And we're going to be talking today, the webinar is entitled Debugging Bluetooth Mesh with Frontline Sodera. And we're extremely glad you're here, that you could join us. Thanks for coming. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get rolling here. First off, please use the chat window or the QA window if you've got questions. And if we can, we'll go ahead and address those immediately during the webinar if we see them or it fits right in. If not, don't worry. Anything in those QA and chat windows will be brought up at the end. We'll have a QA or wrap-up session where you can ask questions and we can interact back and forth. Another thing to remember is that you're all muted right now. So if for some reason there's extraneous noise or a challenge there, we'll try to remedy that quickly. But please try to remain muted. So if you have any options, keep the sound down so everyone can hear. And just to make you aware, we do have a resources page at the end of this webinar that has some links to our website, more information about Mesh, Bluetooth SIG, the Frontline products, Teledyne Croy, and so forth. So that's at the end of this webinar. We're also recording this webinar, so if there's, you want to watch this later or share with a colleague, you're more than welcome to. It takes about a day to get that link back from WebEx and get it all into our system. So look forward to that in the next couple days. An email from us that will have a link and a copy of the presentation via email. So again, thanks for joining us. We're really excited about this. So the first thing we're going to do is just run through a quick agenda about what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to give a very brief introduction to Teledyne Croy and Frontline Sodera. Hopefully all of you know what this is, but I just want to make you aware of some key features there. It'll be very quick. So again, if you've got more questions and you want more depth, this isn't a Sodera webinar, so we're not going to go into a lot of depth there on Sodera specifically, but we will be using Sodera, so I wanted to make you aware of it. Then I'm going to transition this over to Varun, who's going to dive into the Bluetooth Mesh portion. And he's going to be doing demos as he goes along, so you'll be able to see a capture file with how it actually works and the types of things you'll be seeing on your side. But he's going to cover a few key topics. First, if you're new to Bluetooth Mesh, we're going to go over a couple things that hopefully can help you get a foundation or framework to fit things into as you hear today. Then we'll show how to capture Bluetooth Mesh, what decryption and so forth look like, how you can do some analysis of mesh traffic, and then how you can actually decode your proprietary Bluetooth Mesh models. And like I said, then we'll have this wrap-up and review, just kind of highlights of what we talked about, and then a QA question and answer session. So that's really where we're going today. Thanks for joining us. Hang on, I'm not getting audio. Can everyone hear me? Is there anyone, if you cannot hear me, or if you hear me, let's see, I can't hear any voice well on my speaker. So we're getting some people are able to hear, so I'm just going to move forward because I believe I'm transmitting correctly. Perfect. I'm getting a number of people saying that they can hear me. So if you're having troubles, hopefully you'll be able to figure that out. Perfect. Okay, so it looks like we're all set. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the overview of Sodera. So before we begin, just because, like I said, I want you to have just a feel for who we are and what Sodera can do, we're going to just talk briefly about it. So it essentially comes down to why would you want to use a Bluetooth or Sodera Bluetooth analyzer? And as a consumer or as a developer, it's really an important question, and I'm going to show you a couple things that are hopefully very interesting to you. First off, we're the best solution to solve your problem. We've got years of experience. We've been doing this for many years. It's coming up on 15 years that we've been working in the Bluetooth space. You can see our first product, FTS for RBT, came out in 2001. It's been a long important for us. As a business, it was a strategic decision to jump into Bluetooth, and it's nearly since the onset of Bluetooth we've been developing products to help developers with this. And as you can see, Sodera came out in 2015. It's been out a couple of years. It's not a brand new product. And really what we do and what most analyzers do, they'll give you a trace. So this is a representation of what you're going to see. You know, these packets come in and you can see the details of what's going back and forth between devices. You know, I've got a little analogy here. So if we can assume that this Google map is a trace, there's a lot of information on here, roads and, you know, names of places and cities and so forth. But what if you're really what if you're really looking for a place to get a coal-fired brick oven pizza? You know, and if you look at this map, you can't really see that detail. If you zoom in, you might be able to see more. You know how Google Maps goes, so you can, and sometimes you can use other tools and so forth. But you need a little bit more help than just this whole mass of data here, and that's what we give. You know, so you can see now we've got this Angelo's Pizza, coal-fired pizza. We are providing a way using Sodera to be able to see really where your problem is actually found in the trace. So again, you're going to see this later in the webinar, but this is our frame display, and you can see the packets and the decodes and so forth with all the protocols across the top. But it's going to be for an expert, you may be able to dive through this and find exactly what you need. But if you're a novice or you want to do your job more quickly, you need some help. And that's where the protocol expert comes in. So protocol expert is a software module that's added on to Sodera, and it actually points out any errors, issues, violations, and points you to specific references in the Bluetooth spec. So not only do you get the trace and all the information there, but it also helps guide you to solve your actual problem. You know, there's something, you know, I mentioned how we've been in this a long time, but we've got a lot of expertise in Bluetooth. You can see here Bluetooth 5 there in representation with that 5. It's been out for coming up on a year now, but we fully support every Bluetooth protocol and profile. We work very closely with the SIG. You can see we've got a host of products. There's Harmony, Sodera, Bluetooth Low Energy Analyzer, and then the TLF 3000. And we're at nearly every Bluetooth SIG event. So you've probably seen us, that bottom one is a Bluetooth World last spring. You know, we do technology trainings, and we're very engaged in Bluetooth. So we consider ourselves a center of expertise that we have. If you've got any questions or you need help with Bluetooth, we want to help you both with our devices and consulting. I mentioned the different product lines. This is the Bluetooth stack, and you can see Sodera handles very well the topics at the top of that. As you get into the conformance and so forth, that's the Harmony Analyzer, where you'll be able to do LE conformance and so forth and certification, and then goes right down to the radio, the RFI side of production testing and so forth with that TLF 3000 at the bottom. An interesting thing too, we can also with Sodera, we can combine with our 802.11 analyzer and capture and decode and decrypt both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi data together. And you can see that little screenshot off to the right. That's showing you a representation of all the packets there just visually. You can see that ghosted blue is also showing a spectrum analysis, so you can see where there's RF energy interacting potentially with your products as they're out there. And then what's the important thing today we're talking about is that we do Bluetooth mesh today. You can capture, decode, decrypt, and analyze and debug Bluetooth mesh today using Frontline Sodera. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Varun, who's going to dive into this mesh portion further. So hang on just a minute while I make the transition.
My screen.
Are you sharing your screen?
I think so.
I don't have it up here. Yes. There you go.
So hello everyone, I'm Varun and I'm going to go over how to decode Bluetooth mesh using Sodera. So just to give you a brief overview about the different layers in mesh, and this is what uh, is essentially what you're going to see in the trace that I'm going to show you. So at the highest, you have the model layer, and this defines models that is used to standardize user scenarios. So for example, lighting and sensors, the mesh model spec, which is different from the core spec, has a number of models defined in them. The foundation model defines the state, messages, and models required to configure and manage mesh network. This is defined in the core spec. The access layer defines a format of the application data. It controls the application and data encryption and decryption. The upper transport layer encrypts and decrypts your application data. It basically defines how the transport protocol messages are used to manage your upper transport layer. The lower transport layer defines how the upper transport layer message is segmented and reassembled. The network layer provides transport messages. So mesh itself, the nodes itself have their own addresses, and that is typically encrypted and obfuscated. So the network layer provides a mechanism for you to and defines how the transport messages are addressed to one another. It also has another layer of authentication, and we'll go over that later. The bearer layer is typically the layer that is carrying the mesh traffic. So there are two bearers that are defined, which is the LE advertising and the GAT. And below the bearer layer is your the Bluetooth engine itself. And if you need more information, th these two links provide they have they provide a lot of information. The first link has a number of basic tutorials on how to get started, and I believe they do have webinars as well. And the second link is the link to your actual spec. And there are three specs. So one is the core spec, which defines the how encryption takes place and your foundation models. There is a separate spec called the model spec that has supplemental models, and the third spec is the device properties and characteristics.
So Varun, maybe this is a good time. I've got a couple of poll questions. Let's go ahead and do those right now.
Sure.
So that we can just kind of see how it's going to work. So I think we'll run from your monitor. So if you scroll up to the top there. And then here. And do manage panels. And so let me take controls back because I've got it up already.
Okay.
So I'm just going to bring control back to me to ask these questions real quick. All right, and I'm going to, you have to let me share it. I have it back. Okay, so let me do polling here, and we'll run this first poll. So just a couple basic questions about what you're seeing and doing. So first off, are you actively developing Bluetooth Mesh? And I'll give you just a few minutes. And then the next one is, when is your project taking place? You know, if you can give a feel for when that's happening. You want just a minute or two more? Seems like some more data is coming in. So just to share with everyone, it's looking like that quite a few of you are still getting started. So it's showing 43% not started. There's 14% in progress, and then 45% have finished. So very interesting. Okay. And I still got some data coming in, so we'll just let that roll for just a minute longer. All right, so we'll go ahead and do the next poll too because it's kind of a follow-up. So I'm going to close that poll and then we'll give you just a few seconds to wrap up if you're entering your data. It's showing me 10 more seconds. So. All right, then the next poll is similar, and I'm going to open this one. It's what versions of Bluetooth Mesh are you developing for? And then what's the scope of your project? Are you really doing individual prototype products and so forth, or are you deploying a mesh network? And I'll give you a little bit of time to respond to that. All right, so just to make you aware of the respondents, there was one individual who wasn't aware there's a version 1.0 or 1.1. So the Bluetooth SIG is released 1.0, and Varun, maybe you can help me. I know that there's others in the process, but I know 1.0 is out right now.
Right, 1.2 is adopted and 1.1 and 2 are going on.
Okay. All right. So very interesting. So it looks like most of you are working towards 1.0, and then as far as the type of development you're doing, it's showing that most of you are doing the developing Bluetooth prototypes, individuals, as not the network. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. Thank you for your responses. I think it'll help Arun as he's talking about things further in the webinar. So I'm closing that poll now. And it's giving everyone just a few more seconds if you have one last thing you wanted to pop in that poll. All right, thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to turn the controls back over to Varun. So hang on just one moment. Now you're going to have to share your screen again.
I think you need to me as a presenter.
But I had done that.
What do we share?
Share. Okay. There you go. All right, I think we're back to Varun. So thank you for the polling. That's interesting data.
So as I said, these two links are there in the PowerPoint, and you guys can access it later. So I briefly divided the section into capturing, decrypting, and decrypting mostly talks about how you enter your keys and how you go about decrypting using a tool, and analyzing mesh traffic, so that gives you how the packets are decoded, what you can see, and how you can filter in on items. And the last topic that I will cover today is how to write decoder extensions to your own proprietary model so that it appears in the decoding pane. So going over, when you bring up a CPaaS data source window, this is the Sodera data source that you're going to see. So this window gives you an option to record and analyze the traffic, and when you click the record button, you're going to see devices populated in the wireless devices pane, and it looks like I just had 2 devices here. For mesh traffic, we added in a new feature called the analyze mesh advertising packets that needs to be checked in before you start recording. So what this essentially does is that we peek ahead in the advertising packet and we filter in packets with these UUIDs. So the two service user UUIDs of 1827 and 1828 and your AD type of 292A and 2B. We also do support CSR mesh and we continue to support CSR mesh. So if you are implementing CSR mesh, you will also see that traffic automatically filtered in for you. And you will not be seeing any non-resolvable private address related to mesh on your wireless devices pane. And I would strongly recommend to start recording before you you start testing your DUTs. That way Sodera is capturing in the background and we pretty much get a sense of conversation that your DUTs are going to talk to each other. So that's the start record button. So as soon as you click that button, it's going to start capturing the capture file. And to filter in traffic to a frame display, you click the analyze button and that open and once you start analyze, it's going to start filtering traffic into the capture window. So I will go over and give you a demo of how the tool works. But when you open a frame display, this is what you're going to see, and this is the decoded packet information. Just to give you an overview, the window that you see in the left, we refer to that as the decode pane. The top on the right is the summary pane, and you can see all the protocol tabs on the top. And that's your binary pane and your radix pane, and that's the packet we receive from our data source. And when you click on any of the field in the decode pane, that's going to get highlighted in these two panes. So just to give you a quick recap, the analyze mesh advertising packets check flag needs to be enabled in the options menu of the Sodera data source. And I strongly recommend to start recording the capture before generating any traffic from your DUTs. And when you click the analyze button, we instantaneously start filtering in packets and start decoding it for you. Next, I'm going to go over on decrypting Bluetooth mesh with Sodera.
So actually, there's a couple questions that were related to that frame display, so let's just ask them right now. So it says, why is there Bluetooth Classic tabs in the summary pane? Can Bluetooth Classic be captured simultaneous with mesh?
Yes, you should be able to capture Bluetooth Classic, and I think that particular screenshot might have had Bluetooth traffic in it, and that could be a reason.
Yeah. And then the other one was, I brought up in the poll, but will you cover the differences between 1.0 and 1.1? And that's not really the scope of this meeting. We just wanted to kind of get a feel for where you guys were headed. So 1.0 has been released, 1.1 is in development, it's not yet released. So
right.
And there's things in the SIG. So those of you that are involved with the SIG, you know that things are being worked on. Those of you who aren't, you also know things are still changing.
And we are actively working with the working group and transitioning towards the newer specs as well.
Yeah, so we will definitely be having other webinars upcoming that as new things are released, we'll be talking about them. So don't worry, if you've got questions, you can reach out to Varun or myself too, and we will point you in the right directions. But we'll be going through things that are upcoming and as they happen with Mesh. The last question here related to I think the slides that I talked about was someone saw the BPA 100 support. They were asking if the BPA 100 supports Bluetooth mesh, and it does not. All right.
So continuing with decrypting your Bluetooth mesh traffic with Sodera. So When you install the software, there is a configuration file called the meshoptions.ini file that is installed along with our software in your My Decoders directory. My Decoders is located in your Frontline test equipment folder, and that should be in the public documents. And that's just another screenshot of our directory window within our CPaaS software. The meshoptions.ini file is common to both Bluetooth mesh and CSR mesh. We do have different technology identifiers to differentiate between the two sets of keys. This is typically how your meshoptions.ini file looks, and it can be opened with any text editor. So this is the the technology is defined in square brackets, and that's essentially internal for us to differentiate between mesh and CSR mesh. The different types of keys are specified in a flower bracket. So you can see that we have IV index, net key, app key, and dev key. And these keys are independent of each other. So for example, sample data 1 is a network and sample data 2 is a network and my network is the third network. So any of those three networks can use any of the application key or dev key. So we run through all the keys that is given in this configuration file, and we decrypt based on the message integrity check. And similar to any coding language, you can add in comments. Anything commented out will not be used by our software. And at the bottom you can see CSR mesh. So the format is the same, and we do have capability of supporting multiple networks for both mesh and CSR mesh. And CSR mesh is much simpler than mesh, so it's just a network name followed by the passphrase. And let's see. Yeah, so let me go over about the net key. So the net key itself, we added in a label for you to see in the decode pane. So you can name this whatever you want. You can give it a network name followed by equal to sign and the network key. So the network key is a 16 octet field. And what this essentially does is instead of seeing the network key, uh, you will be able to see your network name that you provide in the configuration file in the decode pane. And you can essentially filter out, if you have multiple networks running, you should be able to filter out based on the network name that you give here. So like I said, in this example, I've given a network name of my network, and that's the summary pane. So you should see your my network displayed here. And also in the decode pane at the bottom of the mesh layer, we do give you all the keys that we generated, and you can see the network name defined there as well. And the IV index application key network key is the key that we used to decrypt that particular frame, and that's pretty much given derived from the meshoptions.ini file. The encryption key, privacy key, and network key are secondary keys that we generated from either the I think in this case it's the network key. So updating keys, whenever you want to add in a new key, all you need to do is just add in the key to a new line, save the meshoptions.ini file, and it's important that you reload so if you have your CPaaS up and running, you need to reload the decoders for the change to be in effect. And we do have a companion file on which we save our database, so that also needs to be recreated. The reloading of decoders can be done using the green arrow on your toolbar, or you can also open up a file menu in your frame display and it should be the bottom two options to reload decoders and recreate companion files. So I'm going to go over analyzing mesh traffic.
So there's a couple questions.
Sure, let me address the questions.
So first one here, let me go up a little bit. We talked about that. So one question is, how can you decode the access messages?
So access message typically needs your application key or dev key. As long as you provide the key to us in the meshoptions.ini file, we should be able to decrypt it for you.
Okay, and then talking about this app key, net key, it says so you use brute force to associate an app key with a net key?
Not exactly, because there is, so in the packet itself, there is an application key flag and application ID. So we, except for the dev key, we don't use brute force, because in the case of dev key, the application key flag is set to 0, and the application ID is also set to 0. So in that case, I have to do a brute force, but for the other keys, we typically use the IDs.
All right, thank you. The next one was, does this mean a key refresh needs a manual update to the ini file?
That is still in development, so we are adding automatic updates of key refresh, IV update, index, and few other features, but as of today's release, yes, you do need to do a manual refresh, manual entry.
And then a follow-up to that is what keys are given to Sodera and what keys are derived by Sodera?
So whatever has to do with LE traffic, the Bluetooth LE layer itself, that is automatically derived from Sodera. I think we give the link key, or the user gives the link keys, but with respect to mesh, you do have to give the network key and the app key and dev key, and it's because the technology was or the spec was designed in such a way that it appears as noise to the outside world. So without keys, we won't be able to decrypt the information for you.
All right. Thank you. It looks like that's it for now, but go ahead again as you have questions. If we can inject them in, we will. And thanks for your patience. Some of them came in a little bit ago, but if we don't get to them again, remember we will wrap up and get to all of them if we've missed something. So go ahead and proceed forward, Varun.
So going over to analyzing mesh traffic. So I'm going to give you snippets of snapshots just to prep you up for what you're going to see in the software. This particular example, the mesh is coming over the LE advertising bearer layer, and if you click the add data or expand the add data, you see a field called the mesh payload. This is the actual encrypted payload that you are going to see in your packet, and the radix pane here shows that the encrypted payload is part of the entire package. So I think 2.1 is where your baseband starts, and then it goes on, and whatever you see towards your end is your mesh, the encrypted mesh payload, and this is your CRC information, I believe. And when you click on the mesh layer in your decode pane, the radix pane changes. So this is for the same frame, but if you see the previous slide, you see the entire frame from the baseband to the CRC, and in the next layer you just see a shortened version. This is because we decrypt the information and we fill the radix pane with the new octets that is decrypted, and this, whatever you see when you click on the mesh layer, is the decrypted information, and it is not to be mistaken with the entire packet. And I also wanted to go over the key group window that you see at the bottom of your decode pane. So I did go over your basic network name. In the case of a dev key, what you're going to see is that application key is going to say that it's not used, and it's going to say see dev key. In the case when application key is used, you're going to see the application key here, but the dev key is going to say not used, and this is dependent on the application key flag in the packet. And for example, in the case of control message, I don't use an application key or a dev key, and when the application key is unavailable, it's going to say not found. And so in the case we don't have a network key, we will not be able to decrypt anything for you, and what you're going to see is essentially just a error message saying keys are unknown. When the application key is not available, we try to decrypt as much as we can based on the given information. So in this case, I just commented out the application key, and you can see that it decrypted till the lower transport layer. So you can see the segment offset number and your last segment number, but the access payload onwards is encrypted. And to filter, you can basically filter any field that is shown in the decode pane, and that will pop up a new tab. So you can just right click on any field here. In this example, I've showed a specific example where you can filter in based on a network name. So all you need to do is right click on a field, click on filter in network name, and it's going to open up this pop-up. You just click OK, and it's going to open up a new tab saying that's that's the filter that you applied for. And this is very useful in the case where you have multiple networks, or you want to filter in based on source address or destination address or opcode. Whatever you want to aggregate, you just right click, filter in, and that should pretty much get all the packets related to that particular filter.
And you can use these again and again. Will it remember those tabs? How does that work?
Yeah, it remembers the tabs.
Nice. So you can group your searches essentially and keep using them. So there's one other question that came up. It says, can Sodera sniff GAT bearer?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
So I'm going to go over a demo. Let me bring up a CPAS. So I don't have a hardware plugged in, but this is a capture that I did recently. This is just a CPAS viewer, and I'm opening up a capture file that I captured recently. And as soon as you open, it's going to start loading decoders. That's the first window that you see. And the record button is grayed out because I don't have any hardware connected. This is your CPAS window. So this is the mesh, analyze mesh advertising check flag that I was talking about. This has to be checked in. You start the record, and when you analyze, it's going to start analyzing, and it's going to send the information from the data source to the CPAS. I open up a frame display. The frame display window is the magnifying with a screen behind it. I think I can also do it in the view mode. This is the decode pane, and let me bring that down. That's your radix pane, and mesh itself has 4 tabs actually. I don't have a proxy tab, but you're going to see a beacon tab, provisioning tab, mesh tab, and a proxy tab. In this case, you can see the beacons, and that's decoded separately. So this comes from the LE advertise. You can see the AD type of 2B, and when I click on the mesh provisioning, I see all of the mesh provisioning traffic that's grouped together. and we do support reassembly and provisioning as well. So I wanted to show an example where the network key is not known and how to enter your keys and reload decoders. So in this case, I have commented out my network key, and I'm just going to uncomment it, save the mesh options.ini file, and reload decoders. And there you see the mesh network. So what I did was I just uncommented my network key and I had to reload my decoders.
But with that now you're seeing everything.
Yeah, so we don't need the network key. So this is typically what you are going to see, and the mesh payload, the clicked field here is the encrypted payload, and when you click on the mesh layer, it transforms, the radix pane transforms, and this is the decrypted information. And you should be able to right click, like I said, on any field, filter in, and that's going to open up a new network. So this is very useful when you're trying to debug multiple networks, or you can also do the same for your source address and pretty much doing whatever you want.
That's really powerful. So you can actually see just the data in that network or from that source and so forth.
Right. And I also wanted to show you an example of segmentation. So and you can also drag and drop columns that tells you whatever you want.
So you're pulling those fields essentially into
The summary pane.
Summary pane, right?
And you can sort it based on whatever field you want. So I wanted to show you a frame of segmented. So in this case, there are the packet is segmented into two parts. You have 0 and 1 here. So in the case of 0, we receive only one part of the segment. So what we do is we decrypt until the lower transport, I believe, and we show you the rest of the information as just a segment. And when you go to 1, we reassemble the PDU for you and we show you the entire packet here.
So Vermin, can I stop you just a second? There's someone who would like to see the sequence number in the screen. Can you show that too at the same time?
That was already there.
There you go.
So,
and actually, while I've stopped you, let's just ask this other one. It says, can Sodera become a node in a mesh and get the keys from a provisioner?
say that again.
Can Sodera become a node in a mesh and get the keys from a provisioner?
No, it cannot, because Sodera does not have transmitting capability. So we cannot, and Sodera is, we're a protocol analyzer, so it's more of a black box testing. So we analyze what's going on around you.
Right. The concept on all of our tools actually is that we're just listening, we're not interacting. And that's not entirely true with the TLS 3000, which we did a webinar before, but so we can interact somewhat with one of our tools. But the other ones right now just are purely man in the middle. They just listen to what's going on. The network doesn't even know we're there. So let's see. Any plans to add mesh to PES, the Protocol Expert System?
I'm not familiar with the expert system, but I believe it's in the pipeline.
I can add to that, and absolutely yes. So the concept with Protocol Expert System is it's helping right now with some Bluetooth stuff, but mesh is still developing, coming out. We are going to be adding that. It's just not in there yet, but yes, it's on the roadmap.
And I think someone did ask about this one.
Okay, so this was, I think it came in a little bit ago, so I hope we're not too far out of order, but it says, we noticed that Frontline software, is, when it's updated, it overwrites the configuration files where the setup passphrase, et cetera, are. Are you going to fix this?
Yeah, it is going to be fixed in the next release, so sorry about that. And but the thing is, we did change the format of passphrase, not passphrase, the keys. I think towards the end of the spec adoption. So
Yeah.
that's why it still overwrites, but we will be transitioning and we will not be overwriting henceforth.
Perfect. And just so you know, if you do run it, because we are actively developing things, keeping up with the specification and so forth. So if you do run into things where something doesn't work quite right, never hesitate to reach. You can reach out to Varun or myself, but also talk to tech support and just get that in the queue so that if there's something you're experiencing, probably others might see it too. So that we appreciate you letting us know if there's some issue you're running into. There was another question here. Will a protocol expert system be able to generate mesh traffic and participate in the mesh network? And the answer there is no, not now. So on the protocol expert side, there is an interesting thing that you can do. It'll generate traffic patterns, so you can see how your device will run. It's part of the toolbox option, where it can generate traffic. It makes a random traffic in the low energy space to be able to see what's going on. So potentially there could I don't know the details there, but the concept is we're not into protocol expert and mesh yet, so it's very fuzzy. Let's see. And the follow-up question said, do you need a specific license for analyzing mesh traffic?
No, you don't. It comes with the standard license.
There you go. Given a device key, can you analyze the traffic and display the content of the states in the foundation model of a provisioned device?
Yeah, I believe it should. We do support version 1.0 of the model spec and your core spec. So with few features like the key refresh and IV index still in development, but we pretty much should support everything.
All right. I think that's all the questions. So go ahead and, again, great questions, and again, we'll stop things and try to inject them if we can. But if you can be patient, sometimes we'll definitely get through all of them at the end. But go ahead and type them in. You're doing great at asking questions.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you about a segmented packet. And I'm going to jump over back to the presentation and go on about how to create customer extension for your proprietary models.
So this is as they have their own data that they want to transmit or use.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can decode your proprietary mesh models. The decoder extension itself should be placed in the root of the My Decoders folder. There is no disclosure agreement and you don't need to decrypt any of our proprietary software. And I will be showing you a hypothetical example of a smart door utilizing mesh. So we do have three hooks in place inside most of our decoders. One is called the start main path, end main path, and custom attributes. Now start main path is if you want to add something at the beginning of the layer, and end main path is after the end of the layer or towards the end of the layer. Now if you want to extend a table, say in this case a model, all you need to do is define or create a new file called custom attributes followed by le space mesh.dh, and this is our internal table name. So whatever you see t mesh message opcode is our internal table name, and all you're doing is you're adding a table which is extending our native table. So in this case, let's say it has three opcodes 8ff, d, e, and f, and that's get, set, and status. So this is going to add these three entries to this table. And let me briefly go over the format of the how this works. So each opcode has a function. We call it a group, so it's essentially a function call. And what this does is whenever it sees this opcode, it's going to invoke this function call. And the functions are written right below it. Uh, and you can see that the get doesn't have any decode statement in it, whereas the state set and status has a state called, it's calling another function. So this is essentially similar to an inline substitution. So when you want to reuse the code, you can call in a common group and use a semicolon, and it's just going to do an inline substitution. And the state itself is defined below it, and you can see that it's 2 octets. So what we expect to see in this hypothetical example is your opcode and 2 octets following the opcode. And the first octet is the door position, and the second octet is, let's say, a door lock. And this is the syntax that we use in the decoder script. So field is like it's just a variable type. So you declare a field, a variable name, followed by how many octets or bits you want to decode. And this refers to, this is a formatting method. So if I go back to this guy here, so you can see a mix of your hex and strings. So whenever you see a string, we typically refer to a table. And if you see a hex, you can type in hex, or you can type in decimal or binary or whatever format you want. In this case, we assume the 1 octet can mean has different states in it. So the door position for the 1 octet can mean the following states, and the same for door lock. And everything in decoder script is case insensitive, so you can use small or capital letters, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and this is really a powerful tool because there's there's new things coming up with mesh, and you may be doing something that's not there. You want to see your data, be able to see it right within our tool. It's something that goes across all of our tools, just so you know. So low energy can do the same thing. If you've got some low energy device, non-mesh, you can use decoder script to do the same thing, or classic even. So it's a powerful tool. Some of you may be familiar with it, but to be able to do this with mesh is really important.
That's right. And I think that's pretty much what I had. Do you have any other questions that?
There was one more that came in. They said, basically, I would love to see a screen that shows me all the states in the I think you meant foundation model as an overview. And maybe that's something, I don't know if you've got something like that, but maybe that's something you could, we'll just note his name and
Sure.
give him some information, or you guys can chat via email later.
Sure, I can look that up and I can probably reply back to you in an email.
All right, I've got your note down, and Varun will follow up with you. All right, so let's do a quick wrap up, and then we'll get to some more questions if you've got them. So I'm just giving a real high-level view. So I think you're all aware mesh is rapidly expanding. There's lots of opportunities, lots of innovation. You're part of that, and that's exciting. But it's a changing market, and at Teledyne we're trying to keep up with that, right? We want to make sure that we get you the tools you need to be able to develop and troubleshoot issues with mesh networks quickly and efficiently. We know that also there's some of you may be using CSR mesh, but Sodera will let you use CSR mesh and also Bluetooth mesh, and we talked mostly about Bluetooth mesh today, but they're both they're out there today, and we want to help you. The Bluetooth 5, we haven't talked too much about it, but Bluetooth 5 brought a whole bunch of capabilities with the ability to go longer ranges, faster speeds, and so forth, and that absolutely affects mesh networking. It makes a lot of this possible. That whole interconnection of things, or the IoT Internet of Things concept is really based on some of the things that Bluetooth 5 brought to us last year. So Sodera fully supports Bluetooth 5, and we are actively working to be able to implement anything new that's coming out with mesh into our tools so that you'll have the tools you need. And we support mesh today, so if you're working on mesh, if you're not already using our tool, you should give it a try and see how it works. Just something to be aware of. Some of you have Sodera, some of you do not. If you don't, you can get in touch with us. But some of you may have BPA 600, and you can actually capture Bluetooth mesh data with BPA 600. The challenge that you're going to run into is that some of the extended advertising channels and so forth that take place with Bluetooth 5 are only available through using Sodera. So you're not going to be able to have that capability with the BPA 600. So just so you know, you're going to see some things, but you're not going to be able to see it all if you're using BPA 600. So we suggest you transition to Sodera if you're really using mesh technology in your products. And then the last point, we can help you debug packets and information transmitted by, you saw the different networks and, channels, that the ability to filter out and see which network and which device is transmitting, that's really a powerful way to group your items together and really be able to troubleshoot things. All right, so let me see, I think that's it. So now's a great time. I see some questions coming in, but if you got any questions, go ahead and put them in the QA or chat windows, and then we'll go back and review them together. And again, you saw our contact information at the top. If there's something you think about later, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Varun, or call tech support, or send a note to tech support. Whatever, we're more than happy to help you come to a resolution or get answers to your problems. So let me look and see what's come in here from questions. So let's see. So how much does it cost? And in reality, to be able to analyze mesh, you just have to have Sodera, and the software is already out there. So if you've got a Sodera box, it costs nothing. I mean, you're able to capture and analyze mesh data today. Is that true?
That's true, and I do have some software updates, so if there are some things that are fixed for the upcoming release, but if you need something urgently, you can contact me and I can provide you a software patch.
And if you're new to our software and the way we handle things, just so you know, you can download the software for free. The challenge is you wouldn't be able to capture anything new. So we can get you a capture file. You can see the data and you can share that with friends. And what that lets you do is if you've got a Sodera box and you take a capture file, you can send it off to a colleague. They don't have to be able to capture. They can just download the software and be able to see that data just like you do. So it's a very convenient approach we've taken to software. But to be able to capture, though, you would need a Sodera to be able to capture the new data. Let's see. Next question. Important. Are you saying I can use BPA 600 to capture mesh? And the answer is yes, you can. But it's as long as it's capturing mesh on the three advertising channels that are standard. If they go to any of the extended channels, that you won't be able to see that. Is that true?
Yeah, and I mean, as of today, I think it doesn't need the three advertising channels, but I think the eventual roadmap is to go into the other channels as well. And you should be able to track, I think, a pair of connections.
Yeah, you're going to have more luck. So yes, you'll be able to see some data with the
in the advertising,
but you're going to have more success. Maybe that's a better way to put it. If you use a Sodera box, it's just our technology is advanced, and so it's a better platform. But yes, you will be able to see some with the BPA 600. All right, let's keep going on. Does it work with Sodera LE?
Yeah, the decoders are common to most of our products, so you should be able to see Sodera LE as well.
Perfect. It says, do you have a demo mesh file to download?
I can send one. To that particular participant. Attendee.
Okay, perfect. So let me just jot your name down. And if any of you have, if you'd like one, we can send it to you. Is there anything proprietary in there? We could send it out to the group.
I think I think we can, whatever I
So
generated.
right now we'll send it to the one. If any of you have any questions and you'd like to see it, a capture file, we'll send it to you. So I'm just jotting down this name here. All right. Let's see the next question. And yes, I'll scroll back up to my email address so you can see that. So would you be able to track or detect any of the blue-borne air attacks that may affect mesh as well?
I'm not familiar with the Bluebone attack. I need to.
I'm not familiar with that one either. So I don't know. That's new to us. So we'll have to look into that. And if you've got more information you want to send us on it, that'd be interesting to learn. I'm not familiar with it either. All right, let me go down to the QA window and see what's being asked there. Do you have a limit on the maximum number of keys, and would having too many keys slow down the decoding?
It shouldn't because so the limit on the keys is the 7-bit for the NID that we use, and I think the application or NID is the network ID, so that's 2 power 7, and we typically, I don't do a brute force, so as long as I find the NID, I use the network key and we authenticate that the network key was successfully able to decrypt using the message integrity check. So that's the limit, and it shouldn't slow down decoding because we don't decode unless and until we find the key.
All right. Let's see, next question. Can we list multiple IV indices for decoding?
That is still in development because it's a little more complicated. So multiple IV index is in the pipeline.
So this one I think we already answered, but you can respond. It says, can the sniffer itself act as a provisioner or a provisionee?
Yeah, the sniffer cannot because it's a black box and it doesn't have any transmitting capability.
Follow-up question, the previous one was, or will it be decoding IV index -1?
It is just the IV index. It's not IV index -1.
All right. Let's see. Can we get a copy of the slides afterwards? And yes, you will be getting. I'll send you a link to the present or to the whole webinar. But then also I'll be sending you the slides too, so you'll be able to see them as well. All right. So the next question: do you support mesh adverts sent over extended advertising payloads from Bluetooth 5? Is that even supported by the spec?
I'm not aware of it. So we do support extended advertising payload, but I haven't seen any mesh packets over it. So if you have one and if you can capture, you can send it to me and I can look into adding support because we have both.
Okay. Let's see. Next question. Is there any view which allows you to see the topology of the network?
Not at the moment because mesh 1.0 is a flooded mesh. It's difficult for us to figure out the route of how the packet got from the source to the destination. So as of now, again, that is still in the works and we don't have anything at the moment.
I know there's been a lot of discussion about it, so that it's, yeah. I don't know if we can say that's on the roadmap, but we're talking about how to best present that data to developers. All right, next question. When you save a capture and share it with someone else, do you have to send them the key separately so they can input it in their decoder.ini file? Is that key not part of the capture file itself?
Yeah, it's not at the moment. Again, it's not part of the capture file itself because it was done as a configuration file. But we are trying to move towards new format as well. So it's mesh is still actively in development, so we can decrypt most of what 1.0 shows and the models.
Okay. Next question, with BP600, is the interface the same for mesh sniffing?
Yes, but you will not be seeing a data source window. And BPA 600 has dedicated advertising channels, so you will be seeing traffic from all the three advertising channels. But and the frame display is the same for BPA 600 and the Sodera data source, but you're not going to have analyze LE mesh advertising packets.
All right, I had another gentleman request a capture file, so I put him on my list here. Let's see. When you save a capture file and share it with someone else, do you have to send? Oh, we already asked that one. Could you ask me to add me to the list of file capture files? Okay, let's keep. So there's more questions about, or it looks like answers. People are responding to this Blueborn thing. So it says Blueborn does not apply to mesh, and it says Blueborn only affects BR-EDR, BNEP protocol, and SDP protocol. No effect on LE. So again, we're just unfamiliar with that. It says Armis Labs put out a white paper on Blueborn, and someone's having some troubles with audio, so I hope everyone can hear me still. But that's the end of our questions anyway. So unless there's something else coming in, there's no other questions. It says voice is back. So if there's, I don't have any more questions that you've put in here. Let me scroll down on this screen that can be shared. So thank you for being here, and I can't say that enough. We really appreciate your interest. We are really excited about mesh and what's coming on, and we appreciate you spending some time with us today talking about mesh. Here's the resources page that I mentioned. It's just got this is the same link we showed earlier in the deck that talks about where to find more information from the Bluetooth SIG. This is our main website at fd.com. You can also go to teledyandlecroy.com. And then this is information just generally about, here's our Automotive Technology Center, the Sodera analyzer itself, learn more about that. We briefly mentioned the TLF3000, that's our RFI production tester signal analyzer. And then the Bluetooth Protocol Expert System landing page, which we spoke a little bit about too, that's how you get to that. Always feel free to, if you've got any questions, if you're looking to buy, you talk to our frontline sales, online sales at teledyne.com. Or technical support, same thing. You just go to frontline_technical support at teledyne.com. And here's our information, so you can make a note of that if you've got any questions or you want to reach out to either Varun or myself. I think that's it. So let me just look one last time, see if we've missed any questions before we close. And it looks like we're good. So. And I've got one more person to add to the list of capture files. So, and if you do want a capture file and you don't get one, go ahead and jot my email address down, and I'm happy to get you a capture file of this. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate the time you spent with us. We hope this information was good. We will be doing further mesh webinars, just so you know, as changes happen, and as we may take a little bit deeper dive into this in the future. But we're excited about it. We hope you are too, and we hope you're enjoying using our tools and the software that we put out. So thank you for joining, and we'll talk to you next time.